Muy buenos días, tardes, noches, dependiendo la hora que sea cuando estén viendo este video podcast. Soy Luis Cárdenas y me da muchísimo gusto poderlos saludar. Oye, no seas gacho, ponle aquí en donde dice suscribirte, síguenos y aquí estamos cada martes con nuevo contenido de los temas que tú ordenes, de los temas que tú mandes. Hoy estoy aquí en Reforma y voy a hacer algo que podría ser extremadamente ilegal aquí en México. Voy a sacar esto. No es un arma de fuego. Es un vape que estaría prohibido constitucionalmente, que aquí en nuestro país lo ponen a la par de, por ejemplo, el fentanilo. Oiga, ¿esto hace daño? Claro que hace daño, no es inocuo. ¿Esto hace daño? Sí, por supuesto. Pero de acuerdo a la mayor parte de estudios, esta cosa hace mucho menos daño, por ejemplo, que los cigarros. De hecho, en países como Suiza, como Gran Bretaña, se ha fomentado el uso de este tipo de productos sobre el cigarrillo tradicional debido a que sí, han probado que hay un menor daño, particularmente al tema de los pulmones. Pero en México tenemos otro tipo de pensamiento. En México se ha decidido hacer una prohibición y eso ha provocado que, por ejemplo, el crimen organizado empiece a controlar este tipo de productos. Es algo muy interesante, tiene sus ventajas, tiene sus desventajas y hoy vamos a platicar sobre el tema sin tabú, sin tapujo y con toda la apertura. Te recuerdo, todos los martes aquí estamos en este podcast, @LuisCárdenasMX, escríbenos en todas las redes sociales, aquí en los comentarios en el YouTube, de qué quieres que platiquemos y por supuesto que le entramos. ¡Vámonos! Vamos a platicar justamente sobre los desarrollos que hay con respecto al tema de alternativas de tabaco. Vamos a hablar de muchos asuntos que tienen que ver con las regulaciones, con las prohibiciones incluso. Y para mí es un verdadero privilegio, un honor poder platicar el día de hoy con James Murphy. Él es director de investigación y ciencia en BAT. James, gracias, muchísimas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Déjame comenzar primero preguntándote un poco sobre tu carrera. Llevas 2 décadas en la empresa, en BAT, y bueno, pues ahora estás liderando la investigación y ciencia. Yo quisiera preguntarte, ¿cómo describes la evolución de la ciencia, del desarrollo, los avances desde el 2005 a la fecha?
Yeah, so it's been 2 decades working in the field of tobacco research, and when I joined the company 20 years ago, we were only selling cigarettes, and at that time, I joined the company because we aspired to be a company that would develop new tobacco products that would, over time, be recognised by public health as being lower risk than smoking. And we actually tried to make a safer cigarette for many years, but this wasn't possible because of the combustion. But it's really been since around 2012, for the last sort of over a decade, where we've had smokeless products, and we've been conducting, thorough research on smokeless products. I think now that we're ready to really bring tobacco harm reduction to society.
Dime algo, ¿qué tipos de alternativas de cigarrillos, de tabaco, de productos libres de humo están produciendo y trabajando en BAT?
Well, we have 3 platforms, 3 smokeless platforms. We have heated products, we have vapor products, and we have oral nicotine pouches. Heated products, where we have a small tobacco stick that is heated in an electrical device to about 350 degrees centigrade, much lower than the temperatures of combustion in a cigarette, which are around about 950 degrees centigrade. We have vapor products where you aerosolize a liquid with nicotine and flavors. And then more recently, we've introduced nicotine pouches where you have a small sachet that you place under your lip with nicotine and flavors.
De estos productos que están desarrollando, ¿qué opinas de cada uno de ellos y cuál ves con mayor potencial de crecimiento? Porque cada uno tiene características muy particulares.
Well, interestingly, the tobacco harm reduction equation has 2 parts to it. One is we need scientifically substantiated reduced risk products, and we need smokers to switch completely to these products. So there's no one size fits all, and that's why we need this, what we call a multi-category approach with the 3 different products. So for example, heated products are very prevalent in places like Japan. Vapor products are very prevalent in like the UK and the US. Oral nicotine products are prevalent in places like the Nordics, the US, and also early days in Mexico as well.
Dime algo, James. ¿Van en algún momento a lograr, y ese es su objetivo, también quisiera preguntarte, eliminar por completo el cigarrillo tradicional?
Yeah, so our aspiration as a company is to become a predominantly smokeless products business. Today we have 30 million consumers of smokeless products. By 2030 we would like to have 50 million consumers of smokeless products. And then by 2035 we would like over half our business in smokeless products. And what's interesting today for your viewers to understand is that we have a spectrum of markets. So in some cases, we have markets like Sweden, where 80% of our business is in smokeless products. We have countries like UK, Japan, where over 50% of our business is in smokeless products. We've about 30 markets where we have about sort of 20 to 30%. And then we have markets that are at the very end where we can't legally sell smokeless products, so we can only sell cigarettes in those markets, places like Brazil and Turkey. So that's the opportunity now is how do we get more countries to be like Sweden, where you have that very high percentage of smokeless products in the marketplace?
Dime algo, para gran parte de nuestra población, para gran parte de nuestra audiencia, podrían pensar, ¿por qué están haciendo productos que pueden llegar a eliminar su misma industria? Pareciera que están compitiendo contra sí mismos. ¿Qué ventajas hay en el momento de ir reduciendo sistemáticamente y en algún momento en la totalidad el tema del cigarrillo convencional?
Yeah, well, what's very interesting is that in countries like Sweden, we actually financially make more money from smokeless products than we do from cigarettes.
¿En serio?
Yes. So
Wow.
you actually have an opportunity where if tobacco harm reduction was embraced, it'd be best for society, it'd be best for consumers, it'd be best for regulators, and it would actually be selfishly best for companies like BAT.
Déjame ir en este mismo tema a algo muy interesante porque se buscan nuevos consumidores. Ahorita entramos al tema de la juventud en particular, pero alguien que nunca ha fumado, en su vida ha tomado un cigarro, podría empezar a tener este tipo de consumo. ¿Qué opinan sobre ese punto? ¿Qué opinas tú en particular? O sea, este es un producto que puede ser para nuevos consumidores.
It's a very important question. And today around the world, there's about 1.2 billion people use tobacco. So we have about 150 million people around the world use smokeless products. Now, smokeless products aren't available in every country, so it's not a one-to-one relationship. But our single focus today is to convert adult smokers. There are more than enough adult smokers to convert, probably for the next number of decades, for BAT's ambitions. So that today is really the singular focus. Interestingly, we had some data that came from the UK. We run multi-year surveys in the UK, and of all of the users of vapor products, over 98.5% were former smokers. So if there are new users who never smoked, it's a small number today. It's predominantly smokers who are switching to lower risk products.
Me llama mucho la atención el enfoque que ha tenido particularmente la Gran Bretaña, porque ahí se ha entendido el tema de la nicotina, se ha quitado un poco el tabú sobre la sustancia particular de la nicotina y se ha hablado mucho más de los riesgos que hay por la combustión del tabaco. Pero esto pasa en países, insisto, como Gran Bretaña, que han hecho pues un gran esfuerzo por tratar de que las personas que consumen nicotina lo hagan mediante alternativas menos dañinas. En el mundo sigue habiendo un gran tabú sobre la sustancia en particular, la nicotina. ¿Qué me dices sobre ello?
It's interesting in that, you know, if you look at the very top of the global level, like the World Health Organization has even written into their constitution that tobacco harm reduction should be part of the public health strategy on tobacco, Article 1D of the Federal Commission for Tobacco Control. You see then nations underneath, United States, the UK, really embedding that into their public health strategy on tobacco and making very public statements about that there. The challenge is, I still think, because of the long history of nicotine being in cigarette smoke, there still remains a lot of misperceptions where people think that nicotine causes the risks of smoking, when in fact nicotine is not carcinogenic. It's not the a cause of smoking-related diseases. And one of the reasons we created the Omni was to put these evidences, not just from BAT, but actually from leading public health and regulatory authorities, because I think we really need to tackle that misconception around nicotine first and foremost to facilitate the switch to smokeless products.
Háblame un poco más de esto, de Omni. ¿Qué es Omni?
Yeah, so the Omni is really our manifesto for tobacco harm reduction. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to compile what we felt was all of the key scientific evidence and real-world evidence in one repository that then would be accessible for all of the stakeholders all around the world. So we put our own evidence there, our chemistry, our toxicology, our clinical studies. We also included hundreds of external publications from different countries all around the world. And then we wanted to share some stories from different marketplaces like Pakistan, where we have launched modern oral nicotine products. We have New Zealand versus Australia, where New Zealand's embraced tobacco harm reduction. They have a smoking prevalence of now about 6.8%, almost the World Health Organization's level of 5% to be a non-smoking country. Australia has not embraced tobacco harm reduction and lags behind with a flat smoking prevalence. So we wanted to share the scientific and real world evidence to then start to create a dialogue, because we really feel that tobacco harm reduction should be part of the public health strategy on tobacco.
Este tema en torno a las prohibiciones y al miedo en torno a las alternativas de tabaco o a estos productos de reducción de riesgo de tabaco han generado preocupación particularmente por el tema de los jóvenes. Dicen, yo quiero tomar un vape, me atrae el vape no hace daño. Y bueno, se ha hablado mucho sobre estos temas que han llevado inclusive a prohibiciones, como el caso mexicano, del cual hablaremos en un momento si nos das oportunidad. ¿Qué dices en particular sobre el consumo de jóvenes con este tipo de productos, de vapeadores en particular?
The theory of THR was proposed 2001 by the Institute of Medicine. And Sweden proves that theory, because today Sweden, after decades of smokers switching to snus, which is a sachet of pasteurized tobacco you put under your lip, Sweden today has a smoking prevalence of 5.3%, again almost at the WHO level of 5%. It has the best outcomes in terms of tobacco-related morbidity and mortality. And that happened because consumers wanted tobacco harm reduction, regulators permitted tobacco harm reduction, manufacturers produced high-quality tobacco harm reduction products, and society accepted it. And that's really why one of the reasons we're here in Mexico today. We want Mexico to be the tobacco harm reduction template for Central and Latin America. If you think even geographically, the position of Mexico, bringing the north of Canada and the United States along with Latin America, we feel that if we could get tobacco harm reduction embedded in Mexico, it would have such a profound effect throughout the rest of the continents.
Sin embargo, James, es una meta sumamente ambiciosa, dada la regulación que hoy tenemos en México. A nivel constitucional, esto entendemos que es la prohibición más alta que puede existir en una legislación global. Están prohibidas este tipo de métodos, particularmente el tema del vapeo. ¿Qué opinas sobre ello? Y bueno, pues ¿cómo lograr esta meta que nos dices con las prohibiciones que hoy tenemos, insisto, a nivel constitucional?
That's the reason why we're here. That's the reason why we're launching the Omni today, to catalyze the tobacco harm reduction ambition we have in Mexico. I think what happens, and we've seen it around the world in many different countries, I think often governments, with the best intentions, set out on paper regulatory proposals. But I think it doesn't translate into the real world. When we wrote the Omni, one of the things we researched back, what was the earliest record we could find of people using tobacco and nicotine? And I think it was the Native Americans in which is now the United States, over 5,000 years ago. And I feel that people are going to use nicotine for the next 5,000 years. And today we have a range of smokeless products where people can use nicotine in a much safer form than in cigarettes. And I would say to the Mexican government and Mexican stakeholders, you don't need to come up with some new proposals. The example's there with Sweden, and just follow the example of Sweden, and you can have the same outcomes as Sweden.
diríamos, no tienes que descubrir el hilo negro. Ya hay algunos ejemplos con los cuales puedes tomar y ver cuáles han sido los resultados. ¿Qué pasa en una prohibición que se va haciendo más y más y más larga? Y aquí en México tenemos un problema de crimen organizado en particular. Hemos visto cómo algunas mafias dominan el poder de muchos sectores e inclusive hay mafias que dominan hoy el vapeo. Doy un dato, de acuerdo a un estudio recientemente publicado, cerca del 20% del tabaco, del cigarrillo tradicional, viene de las mismas mafias. ¿Qué podría pasar si esto se alarga, si una prohibición se mantiene durante mucho tiempo en nuestro país?
I think it's such an important point to raise. And, you know, today in Mexico we have 17 million people are smoking. 3 million people are using illicit, illegal vaping products. And if I look back, you know, we've been in Mexico for 101 years. And we want to be here in Mexico for another 101 years. And that's where, you know, we really feel that we need to get the regulation in place to allow availability of these smokeless products to consumers.
Esto que me acabas de decir me impacta, no tenía el dato en la mente. Llevan más de 100 años, si entendí correctamente, aquí en nuestro país. ¿Qué viene en el futuro para VAT en México? ¿Qué van a seguir invirtiendo? ¿Cuál es lo que piensan? Me dices, queremos estar otros 100 años. ¿Cómo?
Mexico is such a strategic market for us. We have one of our key areas based in Mexico. We have a factory in Mexico, which is one of the pride of the group, 2,000 employees. We have a complete supply chain in Mexico. We export products from Mexico to tens of markets around the world. And we've been doing that for 101 years with cigarettes, and we want to do it for 101 years with smokeless products. That's the ambition we have for Mexico. We want Mexico to be the tobacco harm reduction template for Central and Latin America.
Quiero cerrar, James, además de agradecerte mucho porque ha sido muy enriquecedor, hemos aprendido muchísimo. Y quiero cerrar preguntándote, porque además en tu calidad de científico hay mucho que viene en esta industria. ¿Cómo ves a la industria, en particular del tabaco, en los próximos 20 años? ¿De qué vamos a estar hablando en el marco del tabaco, no sé, en el año 2050, en el año 2070? ¿Qué ves en el futuro en el marco de estos avances que se están haciendo? Es impresionante cómo ha cambiado la industria en los últimos 20 años. Bueno, pues, ¿qué viene?
No, it's again another excellent question. We've spent the last 10 years thoroughly evaluating these smokeless products, chemistry, toxicology, clinical studies, population studies. We published it in over 280 peer-reviewed publications that we submit to scientific journals. The gold standard for science for us is what we call epidemiology, and these are population effects, which you see in Sweden. I talked about it earlier. And what I expect to see in the next 3 to 5 years is in those markets that have adopted tobacco harm reduction, they will start to see those epidemiological signals, lower hospitalizations, lower disease rates, lower mortality rates eventually. So that's really where our science focus is changing from looking at individual risk to looking at population harm. And it's just such a fantastic, interesting time to be a scientist because I think tobacco harm reduction can have such a profound effect on society as a whole.
Muchas gracias, James. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Bueno, pues muchas gracias por estar aquí en este podcast. Nos vemos todos los martes. Te recuerdo, suscríbete y acompáñanos para poder seguir produciendo este tipo de contenidos. ¿De qué quieres que hablemos? Hablemos de temas polémicos, hablemos ampliamente de asuntos que terminan por ser tabú. Tú mandas, síguenos en @Luis Cárdenas MX. Mil gracias. Adiós.